Hey Dave, thanks for doing this. You've obviously been part of a cut down deadline as a position coach, as an offensive coordinator, but now you're looking at it from like kind of all different sides. I'm just curious, what have you learned from the last 10 years of doing this that you're going to take into making these tough decisions and then having these conversations with players?
Yeah, Mike, it's a great question. One of the things that I've learned over the years is it's our responsibility. We have a lot of information on the guys that have been with us through the spring and camp. And first of all, I'm so grateful for those guys to be able to, for us to be able to throw the kind of camp that we did. But one thing I've learned over the years is we have to look at the entire NFL, and we have to look at our depth chart and to see where the players that become available would fit in on our roster based on what the information we have on preseason and even on other seasons before and things that they've had. So it's a responsibility of ours to the organization, to this team, to our fan base to make sure we look at all the available people and see where they might fit in on our current roster.
And then to follow up on that, you and Evero obviously have a lot of guys on this roster who you have pretty long-term relationships with. A lot of guys who are veteran guys, maybe at the bottom of the roster, who have had really strong performances.
Yeah.
When you're contemplating culture versus immediate return, how much do you weigh that? Because of, if guys are having great performances, everybody sees that they're having great performances.
Yeah, I mean, great performance and culture sounds like a beautiful recipe for, staying around here. But I think that you brought something else up, which is important is there somebody with traits that we can see could potentially become those types of players where you might have a little bit more of a runway with a younger player? And those are all the things that we have to take into consideration. So.
All right, let's go to Darren Gant.
Dave, you've made a point, really, from the time you first got here, of getting to know guys at a personal level. How hard does that make what's going to be happening for the next 24 or 48 hours as you have to say goodbye to some guys you've gotten to know?
I think you just nailed it. You captured really the feelings that I've had for the last couple of days. Even going into Buffalo, it always feels like the night before the last preseason game is really the last chance where you have an opportunity to thank people, to show gratitude. We're all still together. We're going to play this game tomorrow. And then after that game, then it starts to get really hard because the players are fully aware that there's difficult decisions. And so it's always been a heavy time for me. I would say about 10 years ago, whenever I first became a wide receivers coach, my wife Lizzie and I just said, you know what? It should always hurt. And if it doesn't, I'm not doing it right. I'm doing it wrong. The connection, go for it. Don't hold anything back for the sake of saying, this guy may not be here. Just invest in each other, enjoy every moment, enjoy every day, the challenge of the training camp. And so, it's definitely a heavy time. Yesterday through our meetings, we know like this is the last time with this full group. It's this time, and then it's like towards the end of the season where, playoffs or not, whatever that is, you always know it's coming to an end, and it's never going to really be the same as rosters turn over. So great question, Darren.
All right, let's go to Joe Person, followed by Alex Zetlow.
Hey, Dave, good morning. Wondered if the plan is to start Jonathan Brooks off keep him on the NFI reserve list to start the season.
Yeah, Joe, we're going to have to make that decision in the next couple of days. So we haven't had any, concrete, this is what we're doing right now. We're still talking through that.
And how does injuries like his and at the edge group with DJ and Amare kind of impact your decision and Dan's?
It's huge, right? So we have to look at, the full group of running backs with Jonathan, without Jonathan, without DJ Wanham, with or without, Barno's not coming back for a while, as we get in his rehab. So that impacts us big time, and that's, again, talking about just looking at the guys who have shown us stuff here through camp that can help us, and then also just looking across the league to see who comes available, where would they fit in on this hypothetical depth chart. So open to all of those possibilities right there.
Hey Dan, how's it going? I've asked about the emergency quarterback rule a couple times this offseason. Now that you've gone through an entire 3-game preseason slate, has your approach to and your preference for keeping a quarterback in the building changed? And how does that impact Jack Plummer's future?
Yeah, Jack really made a statement for himself last game, and I value that the emergency third quarterback. But again, that's a spot on the 53-man roster. So that becomes a real sticking point, Alex. It's based on depth and need in other positions. Can we afford to carry 3 quarterbacks on the 53? We're right in the middle of that conversation. Jack made it harder by his performance in Buffalo. I love that. That's exactly the situation I want to be in. I want guys to force hard conversations and hard decisions by Dan and I. And so, again, proud of Jack and really the group, the young group of guys that played most of our preseason offensively, and seeing the growth from week 1 to week 2, cleaning up some of the pre-snap penalties, and week 2 to week 3, getting the rhythm and timing of our pass game going. Loved what those guys did.
Anyone else have questions for Coach?
I do. I had my hand raised. Sorry about that.
Go ahead, David.
Yeah, Coach, I wanted to ask you on the receivers. How comfortable are you with where you are? I mean, would you be comfortable keeping 7? You think 6, 5? You got a number you're looking at right there, or how comfortable you be cutting some of these guys that have really seemed to have played well at the bottom of that group?
Yeah, certainly kind of came out of camp as the strongest group that we have on this team was the depth at receiver. Some really important decisions. Of course, I don't want to get into specific numbers because I know that there's people looking at our guys. And so there is a possibility that we could keep 7. There's a possibility we keep 4 and add 2 guys from other places that might upgrade those positions. So we're wide open again. But what I will say, David, to your point is that group showed up this camp, and they all, to a man, did something that got our attention. And so, I think it's a great question, and we have to definitely look at the whole roster and say how many can we afford to keep in that position. But it definitely is a highlighted group.
And I want to ask you, I know Bryce was just a small sample there in the final preseason game, but
yeah,
you've been known for turning around quarterbacks. What did you see just in that series that maybe reminded you of some things you saw and going back to the last year at Tampa Bay and turning around your quarterback there and then at Seattle? Anything you saw that was similar that made you feel comfortable with him?
Yeah, really just the focus and growth of Bryce, in terms of just his owning the concepts and the timing and rhythm of it, the footwork stuff, all of the tedious drills. Got to give Will Harriger a shout out, just quarterbacks coach Will, just, during special teams, in between drills, just footwork. And it's like there's some, over the years, it's kind of their eye-rolling sessions. Because we're really doing this again? Yeah, we are. And it's just that rote memory that pays off in games. His feet were ready in the ground, ripped the ball to Jordan Matthews for a touchdown because he trusted his feet. He was ready to throw at the right time on the concepts, and that was fantastic. And then again, just to kind of see him, really extend some of those plays for us, especially the 4th down scramble throw to Deontay was a thing of beauty that's been showing up all camp and showed up in the game. So it's something that our guys can learn to count on. Work for him, he'll find you. So that was fantastic, and I'm really excited and really happy for where we are going into these next 2 weeks as we really hone in on the Saints.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, let's go to Scott Fowler, followed by Joe Person.
Yeah, thanks. Hey, Dave.
Hey, Scott.
How are you?
Good, thank you.
Tell me, I have 2. The first one was actually about that 4th down play, and I apologize if you've kind of gone over it before. But so, as a thing of beauty, What was he supposed to do there? You know, it looked like two receivers ended up in the same area. Maybe it was a scramble drill. I mean, it was a gorgeous play off
Yeah.
platform, but can you describe a little more thoroughly what he did so well there?
Yeah, you got it. So first of all, start with the Bills defense. They gloved the concept. They covered it perfectly. They passed guys off. They were in a man scheme. The linebackers kind of communicated with each other, and it was really a dead play. Chuba kind of runs past the linebacker just outside of the rhythm. Bryce has already moved on from Chuba by the time he's open. So it happens sometimes. We design plays to try to get guys open, and the defense is trying to not allow you to do that. They stopped us. We had a clean pocket. Kudos to the offensive line. He got to sit there for over 3 seconds. Once he realized it was covered, then he started to move, and Deontay has been the best guy in camp this season, really, in 2024, of recognizing the play's over. Now I got to start the second play. And that's something we talk about constantly. First route, second route. First route's dead, start creating, and Deontay, the ball finds energy. He broke to the sideline. Xavier is the other receiver you're talking about. He's just staying on his course. In the scramble mode, doesn't see Deontay, who's like 10 yards deeper than him. And it was an impressive effort by the rookie, like laying out. He had no idea this ball wasn't get thrown to him. And you could see the athleticism, the burst of him, and his energy to create scramble plays. So glad it worked out the way it did, because then we got into the red zone and were able to score.
Thank you. And the other one is, you were talking about, maybe you went through this, but how heavy a time this is for you. I'm
Yeah.
sure, because you're going to release so many guys. So as a head coach, will you do that differently? Are you going to lay eyes or hands on every single one of these 30 some odd guys that or how are you going to do that? And will it be different from how you've done it in the past?
Oh yeah, it'll be the same as I've done it in the past. As a head coach, what I hope to do is all the guys that we end up cutting, I will speak to them, and I will give them some honest feedback. Here's what you did well. Here are the things that I think you need to improve upon that would have boded, well for you in terms of making this team. And I just want to give them some good, honest feedback. That's what I would have wanted. And certainly I have a son, Ben, who's 12, and I always thought in my mind, if he were to go somewhere, I would hope that he would get some great, honest feedback for his football life, for his football career. And hopefully I can, afford that to some of the guys as we go forward. Whether we agree or not, at least they understand, like, here's the why behind this decision. And I don't owe that to anybody. It's not a requirement, but I just felt like if I was in their position, I would want to have something going forward to the next team to say, okay, coach said I need to work on this and that. That gives me a real plan in terms of where I need to emphasize my improvement.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Dave, I also had two. Are you guys planning to do an initial wave of cuts today?
That's not the plan right now. I think as we're working through the list of it, the plan right now is to try to get those done on Tuesday. But we'll have to talk to Dan and see, if there is a, incremental thing that he wants to do that way.
And then secondly, and I know this is a joint venture, but in your background in Seattle with Pete and John, do you take anything from their roster building philosophy, and bring that? I'm assuming you would take more from that than your 1 year in Tampa. And what does that look like?
Yeah, it just goes back to what I mentioned before, Joe, in terms of knowing that it's our responsibility to challenge this roster, to compete, to find the best talent. And oftentimes what happens as coaches is we get very comfortable with guys that we've taught, but there may be players out there that from an ability standpoint would upgrade us in certain spots, and we have to be true to that. And because the strongest teams that we've created in the past in places that I've been is because we were committed to getting the best players wherever they come from. And our starting point was this roster for this year, but being open to whatever's out there.
All right, guys. Alex, Mike, David, we got time for one question each, okay? Go ahead, Alex.
Okay, sounds good. Dave, this is just a quick one. I know that Eddie was a precautionary. He was precautionary, and you held him out for those reasons in the second half. Do you expect to bring in a kicker for maybe the practice squad this year, or sign him? Or yeah, what do you expect to do at the kicker position?
I think we're good right now. And practice squad's too valuable in terms of the other skill position, linemen and things like that to carry an extra kicker. So I don't think we'd do that.
Got it. Thanks.
Dave, I know the waiver wire is mostly an advanced scout front office sort of thing. Historically, though, the major premium positions are normally not, bountiful with upgrades. And so I'm just curious, how much do you weigh the waiver wire while you're making these decisions from the head coaching standpoint?
Oh, it's huge. Yeah, I don't agree with the statement. I think that the waiver wire is an incredible way. I've just seen over the years, just a guy named Justin Coleman, who we signed off the waiver wire in Seattle, ended up playing for us for 4 years, made it to a second contract. Understand, let's, think about our roster and think about the depth of our receiver room. There are teams out there with similar situations in different positions where they may have 6 or 7 guys that could help other teams, and it kind of fluctuates what position that is. Some teams have just this, embarrassment of wealth in the offensive line room. Some teams have a bunch of safeties, and it's like, how do we keep all these guys? So we're looking at all that. We're looking at all these teams and saying, wow, this team has a really strong roster at this position. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited to see what there is out there.
Yeah, David, again, I wanted to ask you one more on the receivers. Emir was, I guess, left the game with the injury. He's also a special teamer. Where does he stand right now, and how does that stand when you're making these decisions?
Yeah, they're still doing some evaluation. He went through a bunch of tests yesterday. He's going to a specialist today to gather information. So we'll know more this afternoon. But I will say Amir did a fantastic job showing what he can do. 2 great returns, a punt return and a kickoff return, and he was able to showcase the value, the extra value that he brings beyond just the wide receiver.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thanks, Coach.
Thank you. Good to see you all.